All right, everybody, welcome and happy first day of ACAB. My name is Esme. I'm a member of the Firestorm Collective, and today we are kicking off the 2025 Another Carolina Anarchist Bookfair. And we are here with Blu Buchanan, who is one of the co-editors of Be Gay, Do Crime, Everyday Acts of Radical Queer History.
Awesome. Thank you so much and welcome, y'all. I'm excited to talk about the book, about how I came to the work, and do a little bit of reading to see some of the entries that we worked on. And we'll start with our September 26th entry. But before I do that, a little introduction about myself. I am an assistant professor over at UNC Asheville. Thank you. Look, we're trying, y'all. I am a relatively new transplant. I got here in 2021. And I originally came from an organizing background in California. So I did labor organizing, BLM type organizing, trans liberation organizing. And I say this in part because I tried to bring all of these aspects to the work. I was invited as a guest editor for the volume. And basically, the goal was to talk about queer history in as broad a manner as possible, specifically thinking about sort of non-normative, non-US centric, non-white centric, non-cis centric manner. So yeah, I'm very excited.
Awesome. And before I let you go too much further, I'm just going to do a
Please.
couple of quick housekeeping things. Tonight we have two audiences. We have the one that's in person, and the other is joining us on the live stream. Hi, live stream audience. In a bit, when we ask for questions, if you could either speak your question into this microphone, which I'll place back on the stand here, or if Blu could repeat the questions into the microphone, that would be awesome. Because the event is being recorded and to protect the audience who are here in person, we are asking folks not to use their cameras to take any photos or videos when you're in the space. The event will be recorded so you can watch it later if there's any special tidbits you want to revisit. For those who are new to the space, our bathroom and water fountain are in the other end of the store there. If you need to exit the building, there are exits to the front here, and then there's a sort of emergency exit through the kids' space there. If it is necessary to leave through that exit, please be mindful of any folks around you who have mobility concerns, and please provide special support to them. I think that is all we've got. So we're going to go ahead and get started. Thank you so much, Blu.
Awesome. Perfect. Set up. Okay. So just a little bit, have folks read the Working Class History book? A few folks. Okay. So the reason why I raised this is because we were actually invited to talk about a sort of queer and trans history of rebellion by the Working Class History Project. And that really sort of guided the conversation because part of what we were trying to do was articulate a counter history, right? Especially in a moment where queer history is increasingly co-opted for various neoliberal projects, white, right, pinkwashing, efforts to sort of corporatize queer and trans existence. This was meant to sort of reground us in the knowledge that like we're not alone, we're not doing this for the first time, we're not reinventing the wheel. And the format of the book is sort of a reflection of this. So both Working Class History as well as our title is organized around a day in the calendar. So it starts with January 1st, it works its way to the end of the year. And let me tell you, for some reason, queer and trans folks are doing all kinds of activity in June. But it turns out February, real hard to find activities. Folks are like, I'm hibernating. So the way that it's set up is a daily reflection. The goal of the book is to give us sustenance throughout the year, an opportunity to reflect, not just by ourselves, but with others. And because of that, the format is around a daily reflection. So we start with a January 1st, we have an entry, and then we sort of, not all of the not all the days have multiple entries, but we got one. We got one for every day of the year. So I will say that one of the difficulties or the struggles that we had was sort of trying to include histories outside of the United States, but not just outside of the United States, specifically in non-Anglophone history. So I do want to sort of acknowledge and hold that the book is doing the best it can do with the language skills of the editors like on hand. So um, I wanted to maybe just read a few passages. And then I was actually hoping for some conversation to sort of ask questions and think about that history together. Okay. So we'll start with September 26th because why not start where we're at? Um, September 26, 1945, Gloria Evangelina Anzaldúa, an American scholar of Chicana feminism, cultural theory, and queer theory, was born in Texas. Anzaldúa wrote extensively about her queer identity and the marginalization of queer people, particularly in communities of color. One of Anzaldúa's most influential works is the semi-autobiographical Borderlands La Frontera, The New Mestiza, which was published in 1987. While she identified as a lesbian in most of her writing and had always experienced attraction to women, she also wrote that lesbian was, quote, not an adequate term to describe herself. Anzaldúa said that she, quote, became a lesbian in my head first. The ideology, the politics, the aesthetics, and that the, quote, touching, kissing, hugging, and all that came later. Part of what Anzaldúa is reminding us is that when we're thinking about ourselves as queer and trans people, that our identities are always a set of political decisions, right? And many of us are like, oh, we're born this way. But part of what Anzaldúa is challenging us to think about is what would happen if queerness and transness was a choice? What would it mean to choose with purpose, with intent, to be and participate in queer and trans politics? Those kinds of meditations, thank you. Yeah, those kinds of meditations are part of what we're challenging folks to sort of take away. It's not just a memorize the dates, facts, and figures, but really asking ourselves, what is it that we can learn in this moment, right? For folks who don't know, this book launch blew up on Libs of TikTok. Mm. I was like, wow, I am 1 degree of social media separation away from Pete Hegseth. Little did I know. And a big part of this was concern that the book was going to radicalize and organize I think one person says it was supposed to cause a youth militia. Look, you said it, not me. Um, but the reason why I want to sort of bring that up is not just to say, hey, this is a political moment in which writing, even just sort of writing about very non-controversial historical topics has become a point of political contention. Um, And I think that this helps us to remember that it was always political, um, and that how we create facts, how we remember history is a set of choices and commitments as well, right? Um, I think that in the moment, we are also encouraged to sort of shy away from acknowledging or thinking about political violence. But I had an entry that I wanted to share, which is obviously 100% not encouraging any of us to participate in any violence, but to remind us of a fabulous moment. October 14th, 1977, Minneapolis gay rights activist Tom Higgins, see June 17th, 1950, threw a pie in the face of Anita Bryant during a news conference in Des Moines, Iowa, in which she was answering questions about her plan to open a network of Anita Bryant centers where homosexuals could go for rehabilitation. After being pied, Bryant burst into tears and began praying. Bryant, who was already well known as a singer, led Save Our Children, a homophobic campaigning group that successfully overturned legal protections for LGBT plus people in Dade County, Florida. Bryant had declared about homosexuality, I will lead such a crusade to stop it as this country has never seen before. Bryant was also a brand ambassador for Florida orange juice, which then became subjected to a mass boycott campaign. Gay bars replaced screwdrivers, which, if you don't know, vodka and orange juice, with Anita Bryant's, made with vodka and apple juice, and the profits were donated to the campaign, right? So here we've got an instance of direct action. And I do want to sort of make sure that folks know this isn't a book that just contains our wins. Um, it is a book that talks about and acknowledges that it is a struggle, and that means recognizing the moments where we've had setbacks just as much, right? Um, because those setbacks aren't received passively. There's always a next entry to remind us that there's more work to be done, right? And there's new tactics to sort of craft and make use of. I wanted to sort of end my readings with one in particular here. Where is that? You'll have to bear with me because this is not my copy. Where are you? Just a moment. Where are you, lesbian Avengers? You know what? I'm not even gonna worry about it. I'm gonna do this off the top of my head. Um, in a in an act of defiance to a killing, a set of killings. Yes. Do you have the page? Oh, there it is. Ha. Okay. Thank you. October 31st, happy Halloween, of 1992, in honor of Hattie Mae Combs and Brian Mock, a lesbian and gay man who were burned to death in their own home during the last days of a heated campaign to pass a statewide ballot measure in Oregon. The lesbian Avengers literally ate fire on the streets of Greenwich Village in New York City. The New York Times described the protest. They ate fire, chanting as they still do, "The fire will not consume us. We take it and make it our own." During the demonstration, the Avengers also marched with torches and burned signs with the names of anti-lesbian and anti-gay propositions blamed for the homophobic violence. The Oregon measure would have classified homosexuality as, quote, abnormal, wrong, unnatural, and perverse, and required the state government to be assertive in discouraging homosexuality, teaching that it is a moral offense similar to pedophilia, sadism, and masochism. And it was defeated that November, albeit narrowly, in part due to the public horror of the hate crime against Cohen and Mock, which many blamed on the toxic environment created by the campaign to pass the ballot measure. Now, I want to reemphasize the date. This is October 31st of 1992. Many of these same propositions, many of these same political calls to action, many of these same associations between queer and transness and quote unquote unnatural or perverse ways of moving through the world, these calls are happening today, right? We see these in bills passed right here in North Carolina, where it's unacceptable to talk about things like transness, gender, queerness, or sexuality in fear that it will somehow taint or infect the youth, right? I think that the Lesbian Avengers are providing us an important stepping stone to take the fire that we're experiencing and chant, "That fire will not consume us. We take it and we make it our own." I want us to sit with that for a moment. It's hard to think of fire while it's raining, but that's okay. Okay. The goal of the book is sustenance. It is to feed us as we're in the work. It's supposed to remind us of the things that have come before so we don't have to feel like we are reinventing the wheel, right? It offers us a chance to practice a ritual of memory with the ones that we love and care about. And that's really what the book is about. It's what inspired it. It's what led to 2+ years of work, um, was because of that care. So I'm really excited to hear what folks have questions about. Um, Maybe we can talk tactics, strategy. Um, yeah, excited to see what questions folks have. Thank you.
Great. So I know it's pretty packed in here, but if you've got a question or anything you'd like to share, I'm going to ask you if you're able to kind of work your way over this direction and use this microphone so that folks who are in the back or on the live stream will be able to hear you. You won't be on camera in this location, but your voice will be recorded. If you would like to ask a question and getting up here isn't possible or desirable, then let's just shout them out as best you can, and maybe Blue would be so generous as to repeat the question over the mic.
Absolutely. Questions, thoughts, feelings. Shade. Any of the things. I'm ready.
Hi.
Hey.
I'm wondering, with the state of the world today, if I don't know when you sort of stopped with your entries, is there anything in particular that you would have included in the last bit of like more recent history that you feel like if you could do it again right now today, you would?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, I mentioned that I started the book with my co-editors years ago, but we were adding entries right up until that was sent off to the press. So, we did manage to cover a good amount of relatively recent history. Um, what would I want to include that didn't get to be included in the current moment? I would say that queer and trans people have been playing a really important role in both like anti-ICE and like Palestinian, like pro-Palestine movements. And we did get a bunch of the sort of historical support for Palestine in there. But I really think that if there was something that I would want to pull out as far as our participation over the past 6 to 8 months would be the intervention that queer and trans people have had in addressing immigration and the violence that we're seeing with immigration. Yeah, thank you.
So this question is more so about like after the book came out, but I know there was like a ton of like online stuff about it. Did any of that like spread to your like real life? Did they like threaten your employers or like you or any of your like co-authors? Like did anything actually like impact your life?
Yeah, uh, I I can speak broadly that my co-authors were concerned. They did receive like online harassment. But it seemed after just speaking from my own experience, um, libs of TikTok really made it about UNCA and made it about my particular role as a professor, right? So they were really trying to capitalize on universities and the sort of discourse about universities, and in particular, Charlie Kirk. This claim that like the book was going to radicalize people to take up arms against folks like Charlie Kirk seemed to be their sort of central goal, or like how they were framing the book, which was fascinating to watch them argue with like Grok, because Grok is like, this is what this book is about. And they're like, no, it's not. It's a call from militias. If you've ever watched somebody argue with AI, it's a wild experience. But certainly I would say that the sort of central issue that I found was that somebody had come to my department and taken a photo of the book launch events flyer, which suggested that they actually entered into like they took the effort to like come to the space. It meant that they know where my office is, they know sort of where I am. Um, there's a nice little chart of like when different classes are offered in what rooms, right? And so I was concerned more about the in-person sort of uh, consequences. Thankfully, this is not my first time at the rodeo. So like I have been doxxed before, and then I learned that I how to protect myself, and being able to do that preemptively really helped once things popped off. Because I didn't know that that was going to happen, but by having sort of a good practice in place, that really helped to protect myself, my colleagues and coworkers, which was really important to me. Um, all that said, they did reach out, like there was a concerted effort to get UNCA to do something. And this is perhaps where the institution's apathy helped me a little bit. I reached out to my colleagues, my coworkers, and I said, hey, this is happening. I want you to know because we know that right-wing violence, particularly on university campuses, is real, and we need to be prepared. My department was super lovely, but often the response was sort of like thoughts and prayers, was like, oh no, this is really terrible that this has happened. And I was like, okay, like, but what are we gonna do? Right? And they said, don't worry, we're gonna reach out to the provost. If you know anything about academia, the provosts are out there, they're making their decisions, they're doing their thing. But basically, their response was, it's happening off campus. So good luck. Like, there's nothing actionable for us to do here, right? In some ways, it helped me. They didn't respond or sort of feed the trolls who were calling for like my resignation. But they also absolutely just sort of left me on my own to sort of reap the consequences of my political decisions by talking about queer and trans history. So yeah, I would say it was folks like our community safety team, the folks at Firestorm that had actual sort of answers to help provide me support in ways that I was not getting from my institution. And so that I think, in addition to being Black, in addition to being trans, which encourages folks to just be extra, um, being sort of set adrift by the institution had its pros and its cons. But yeah. Next question.
What is your favorite struggle?
Ooh, ooh.
I know it's probably hard to pick just one, but whatever is the most meaningful.
Favorite struggle? Who can pick one? One of the organizations that we talk about in our book and that I teach my students about when I talk about Black trans organizing is STAR. Do folks know STAR? So I will say it's a little old school language, but you know, the girls were in the 70s. They were using different terms. But STAR is the Street Transvestite Action Revolutionaries. And what STAR did in terms of the struggle was to say that like the struggle of the like unhoused LGBT youth, that the needs that folks had to be able to embody their gender and to practice their self-expression required material support. And so STAR set out to be basically house mothers, to be family to unhoused queer and trans youth. They took on sex work, they took on a lot of sort of gray or Black market labor in order to secure those material needs. I think that that's really beautiful because if we're looking at an example of a struggle, it is one where everything is brought together, right? That when the chips are down, when you are truly on the margins, it takes it takes not just a recognition of who we are as individuals, but that truly saying that we love and support one another needs the material work, right? The money, the housing, the food, those are the things where really the rubber meets the road. I also want to say, never one struggle, but that's one example that I feel like really embodies all of them. Thank you.
So you kind of talked about this with Star, but I wanted to ask what kind of reminders from the past do you think queer and trans folks of today need to hear, specifically regarding organizing?
Yeah. Don't trust the police. I mean, I feel like I'm like speaking to the choir here. But no, I say it flippantly, but something that keeps coming up is what does it mean to be safe, right? And like in this current moment, many of us, myself included, feel deeply unsafe. And so I think in terms of organizing, what lessons, obviously don't trust the police because we keep each other safe is one lesson, but perhaps I don't want to say trite, but maybe an over sloganed message, but rather to say that like keeping each other safe is a dual process. And this is something that certainly comes up in across the many sort of moments in time that we track in the book, which is that keeping each other safe means destroying things. It does mean ending relationships, establishing boundaries between ourselves and sometimes folks who hurt us. But it is just as much a process of taking care, making sure that folks get fed, not because you like them, but because you believe that like they have dignity, right? Miss Major, Black trans figure, at one point in an interview, she says that like loving your people is not about hugging and kissing up on them. It's not about sort of kikiing with them, about them being your bestie. It's about seeing even the girl that just rubs you the wrong way and knowing that the work that you're doing is so that everyone has access to the things that they need, so that it isn't about disposability, right? You got to have that tension between the ending of things, the ending of relationships and those boundaries, and also pushing back against disposability, about the care work that it takes to bring the kind of world that we want to see into being. So yeah, yes, thank you. Another question.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi. I'm really fascinated with the decision to structure the book as like yearly reflections,
Mhm.
and in love with the framing of like practicing rituals of love and care. Can you speak more on if these practices have already surprised you, like with the sort of reflections and things that have come up, and how you've found like using time to try and help uh, people organize and stay inspired to keep going?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. Um, if folks in the room know that sustaining organizing, ooh, that's a hard ask, right? It's difficult to do. And I will say the book is not out here to make it easy to sustain that work. It says, yeah, there are going to be days where the entry is going to be heavy, right? I mean, one of the entries that we had today talks about people being set on fire. It is not always a call to engage with the world in a light way, right? So I want to sort of, I want to articulate that because sustained work doesn't mean disengagement. It doesn't mean sort of light, joyous reflections. Being in the work is about bringing your full self as a person. And like the full self is experiences of pain and difficulty and struggle and wins and like prevailing, right? So I think that something that has surprised me in both writing the book, with my co-editors, and with how people have responded to it, has been sitting with grief is just as much a part of thinking about our history. And I think when I went into writing the entries, I was like, I want to talk about how awesome we are. I want to talk about all the things that we do that are amazing. And that is absolutely in there. But just like any movement, just like any struggle, it isn't real without embracing the full spectrum of feeling. And I think that making room for that grief, especially making it like part of our communal reflection, is important so that we don't feel overwhelmed or like we are compartmentalizing our grief in the current moment, which certainly has been how I have been dealing with it. But like, we're living, we're learning to be like, hey, we will survive it. Not all of us will survive it, but we will survive it. And the question is, how do we make that process of survival also a joyous one, right? That when we encounter those hard entries, that we also see that that struggle is not in vain. And that means it's also a call to action. And my hope is that as people are reading and reflecting, when I say reflection, I don't just mean like, great, that was wonderful, but that is supposed to lead you to do something different in your life. Small ways, big ways, it should lead to some aspect of change. But thank you. That was a great question.
Are any of the entries in the book from Appalachia or North Carolina? And if so, could you share one with us?
Yeah. Yes, there is. And one of the entries is actually about Firestorm. So yeah, obviously as I mentioned, I'm a transplant to Appalachia, but my co-editor, Zane McNeil, is from Appalachia, from West Virginia. And so Appalachia and sort of Appalachian history features prominently throughout the book. Because again, it's easiest sometimes to speak what we know. And so, yeah, the founding of Firestorm was something that we thought worthy of an entry and celebrating. So, yeah. Oh, is it on? Y'all with that index. Mhm. May 24th of 2008, Firestorm Cooperative opened its doors in downtown Asheville, North Carolina. The space organized explicitly as a queer and trans project, focusing on creating a space for grassroots community building and organizing. The collective later restructured its work and from 2018 to 2019 organized around fighting gentrification in West Asheville. It partnered with the Steady Collective to assist community members and provide free meals. Firestorm then came under scrutiny. Boo. And the city zoning administration accused the cooperative of operating as a homeless shelter in violation of zoning code. With the support of national and local actors, the collective was able to combat the claims and continues to exist as a thriving community space. Any other questions? Things that have come up for folks? Y'all have thrown some heavy hitters already. Like, anything else? Well, in that case, oh, hey. Hey, Chelsea.
Hi from the TSU, first
Hey.
of all. And what was the process of actually what was the process of actually like publishing? Because I assume this wouldn't get picked up by like Simon and Schuster. Don't know how to pronounce that.
That's okay. Not worth pronouncing.
I give you terrible pronunciation.
Yeah, to be honest, this is the first time where I have been a part of a project from its inception through to an actual like physical copy. Like, this is actually the first time that I saw, like, today, this was the first time I saw it in person. I was like, oh my God, it exists in the world. But yeah, so PM Press had been in communication with Zane, because Zane, if you don't know, like, Y'all Means All is Zane's book. You can also find some of their work here in Firestorm. They had connections. They were the ones that were like, hey, there's a publisher. I have this idea and I want to run with it. I just sort of got picked up as like a former co-conspirator who happened to do historical work. And they were like, hey, do you have time to work on this? And I said, yes, because I don't know how time works. And from there, we basically worked on crafting a full proposal for the book manuscript. We said, what is the goal of the book? What are sort of its fellow books that it's in conversation with? PM Press was like, love it, great. We've worked with the working class history folks before. And this is a really important project that we want to sort of uplift. And then basically PM Press was like, go forth. And every so often they check in. How's it going? There was some moments there where we had to also say, hey, the world is on fire. And like, Helene is Helening. So if we could just have a little bit more time, that would be super great. And thankfully, as like a lefty press, they were flexible about those deadlines in recognition that like the work has to be done while we feed ourselves. And yeah, basically, I would say that the press part, it's a little bit different because of this book, because I was brought in when people were already fired up about it, right? But as far as like press stuff goes, any of y'all can write a book. You just have to say, here's what we want, the story we want to tell. Here's what we think it contributes and the conversation that it's a part of, right? And presses like PM Press are looking for those stories, especially in a time like we have now with so much dis and misinformation. Hearing directly from folks about their experiences in whatever format is really welcome. And I am also happy to help if you're like, hey, I want to do one of those things. Like, I'm a local. Y'all know where to find me, probably here. And I'd be happy to answer any like specific questions you have about that process. Awesome. Great. Well, in that case, I'm actually like, my goal here was basically to get all of y'all in a room so that you can talk to one another. It's been my secret plan all along. So with that, I'm gonna be here making myself available. If you're looking for like your book to get signed, a little message, I am happy to provide it. Otherwise, get to organizing.